as light workers, we're here to be light, be the light, bring the light. So it explains the mechanics behind why would a light worker be born in an abusive situation or have abuse in their life. It goes behind that, the mechanics, how it works, why did that happen?
Right.
And it wasn't to make you a better person or pay your karma or any of those things. It's a completely different reason. Welcome.
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 Welcome. Right. Well, I'm
The
used to
WooForThought.
saying welcome to another episode. I have
Oh,
like my whole
yes.
spiel, but
Yes.
that's not what we're doing today.
Yeah, welcome to WooForThought, honey.
This is a WooForThought.
Yes.
WooForThoughts we have about once a month,
Once
right?
every 2 months or so.
Or every 2 months. They happen and when they happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they are a podcast or a reflection on a WooForThought essay that you've written.
Mm-hmm.
The essays are a longer form of your newsletter article.
Yes.
Give you a little bit more meat, potatoes,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more to dig into. We don't have a second hour episode like we do with Driving to the Res. Driving to the Res, we talk about a very short article that you write, usually a one pager, right? And then we deep dive into it together, and then we bring in our expert panel.
Yes, right there.
And really take a few bites at that article from very different angles. This
Yeah.
WooForThought, we just like to focus on our thoughts on this this particular essay because they're pretty long.
There.
They have a lot in them.
Yeah.
And
There's
so
a lot to look at.
I normally would suggest that you go to WooForThought and look up this essay and read it.
Yes.
But
it's
this
really worth it.
particular essay came with a warning.
Yes, there's a warning on this one. Oh, to get there, go to inelia.substack.com.
Right.
And there's going to be a menu item called WooForThought.
It's on the top there, usually. At least on my computer it is.
Yeah.
Some of them be like a newsletter or whatever, but one will say WooForThought.
Yes,
Right?
that's
Click
where
on
the
that
essays
one and
are.
you'll find these essays. This one's down 3/4 of the way down on the list.
Yes.
And it is called, well, let me look at the exact title. It's called A Tale of Abuse and What It Meant for a Baby Light Worker.
Yes.
This one has been on hold, to be honest.
On our podcast.
On our podcast. We haven't done any woos for a while because we kind of like put this one off to the side. Because it's
this particular essay. We actually did podcasts on the following essay.
Yes,
but we're going to skip this one at the time because it has a warning because it's very heavy.
It says at the beginning, if you're tender of heart, then skip reading it.
Yeah.
But what I would like to say is, right, I don't think you should skip knowing about how to deal with the topic that we're going to talk about.
That's a very good point, honey. That's a very good point. So if you are tender of heart, at least listen to this discussion, right?
Right. Maybe avoid the reading of the essay. You don't really want. I mean, second, third, fourth, seventh, about now the 10th time through this article. I remember the first time I read through it was very impactful at an emotional level, right?
Yeah.
Now that we've talked about it, like we're talking about it now. Now that I've read it many times, now that I took notes while I read on it to ask some specific questions, it didn't have the same emotional punch that it did before.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, maybe if you qualify yourself as tender of heart, right? You don't want to be exposed to, I guess, what would you call it? Trauma, possibly traumatizing or traumatized or punching traumas. Not punching traumas. You know what I'm trying to say? Emotional, impactful,
PTSD.
low frequency, whatever, these kind of things. If you don't really want to get that hit, then just listen to this.
Yeah.
See how you feel at the end of it. And if you can, I would suggest, at least in my experience, having done this, the punch that it packs is much diminished, personally speaking.
And the essay wasn't written to give a punch or anything like that. It was written because I saw that many, many light workers stepped into very abusive situations here on Earth. And then, because they're light workers, they tried to give it value. They tried to give that abuse and trauma value. And that is not what we're here to do, right? As light workers, we're here to be light, be the light, bring the light. So it explains the mechanics behind why would a light worker be born in an abusive situation or have abuse in their life. It goes behind that, the mechanics, how it works, why did that happen?
Right.
And it wasn't to make you a better person or pay your karma or any of those things. It's a completely different reason.
Right. So to give you an idea, first impactful paragraph or whatever sentence maybe is like only a few in. It was when you found this newborn baby, like days or weeks old. How long?
Probably a few weeks old.
A few weeks old newborn.
Yeah.
And you can imagine what those ones are like. They're just teensy weensies.
Tiny little babies.
And they're all as innocent can be. I mean, as far as experiences goes. And this one, when you saw her, you put your hand on her and she stifled her cries.
She did.
What newborn? I mean, I've been around plenty of newborns. That's not generally.
Well, they do.
They don't stifle anything. They let you know, right?
Yeah.
So that was a pretty intense trauma to teach a newborn to stifle its own cries.
Yeah.
That's the that's tear jerking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that we've jumped into it deep, tell me why this baby chose to be born, right, in a way that they would be exposed to such traumatic experiences to stifle their own cries when they're like 2 weeks old.
The main reason why many, many light workers have done this is because a call went out into the universe about bringing light onto the human collective on Earth.
Right.
And many people can relate with that.
Answering that call.
Yeah,
like,
answering
okay,
that call.
I'll help.
And then a lot of them came from pure light existence, whether as humanoids or light blobs of light or
Right.
different creatures or ETs or even humans in other locations. They did not have any exposure to darkness, to evil. None, zero. So they had no comprehension of what this was like. So when they were asked to come in and volunteer, they said, yeah, I'll go do that. And they said, well, where do you want to go? Because part of the rules of engagement of Earth when you're born here is like you choose what situation you're born to. And he says, well, where's the light most needed? Where's the darkest part that I can bring light to? Because I want to be effective,
Mm-hmm.
Where's the light most needed? So the darkest situations were shown, and they would choose that, not knowing what that was. They had no idea what that was. So they landed, and a lot of them died right away because it was so incompatible, and they had no comprehension of what that meant or what that was.
I can see that. I can see how that would happen, right? Like, well, okay, yes, I'll answer the call, come to bring light. Where is the part that needs the most light?
Exactly.
Well, I don't think that's probably the wrong question, right? Where can I be most effective
right.
at bringing this light?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But through pure ignorance and innocence, right?
Innocence, total innocence, yeah.
The question caused a response or reaction that brought them to the darkest place, which is not probably where they would become the most effective, right?
That's right. Well, I could say from this story that I talk about that this particular light being, this particular baby, managed to succeed.
Right, and succeed. Yeah, I agree.
In diminishing the darkness in that space. And looking at it now, after having written this essay and after like telling the story and remembering it and looking at it, I don't think it was her first rodeo.
Oh,
It felt like that at first, right? But the fact that she managed to coordinate and orchestrate a move out of that darkness for her and her mom, which was also a little girl, I think she could. I don't think it was her first rodeo.
yeah, I don't think so either. I kind of want to explore it as we go a little bit more in the linear. As I read the article, this is the impressions and the questions, and I'm going to get to that point.
Okay.
I think in a minute. The point I wanted to reflect on was that when you found that little baby on the shelf at the store, and you put your hand on her and she stifled her cries, you tapped into her in some way, and you saw that she was radiating clean and clear light.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, you also said she stifled her cries.
Yeah.
Out of, I think, some form of, you know, fear of the consequences. She's
Right.
already been programmed not to cry, or else
When you're touched, you don't cry.
when you're
Or
touched, you
something
don't
very
cry.
bad
When you're
happens.
burned, you don't cry. When you,
Yeah.
just stifle that. Otherwise, it's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think there's some relationship between the length of time that you're in these traumatic environments and your clean, clear light, or clean, clear light and the traumas you have don't really affect them? Or is the, I mean, how could the baby's light be so clean and clear with this severe enough a trauma like that? Or was it just, you know, since it has brand new, it just hadn't really, it was just like body being trained, like Pavlov or something,
Yeah, I think the reaction was a body reaction,
right?
but her soul, I think, was still pristine. You could still feel it and contact it. I have found, you know, later on in life, I have seen it's in children and adults when they're full of light and then suddenly that light goes out. I have
Yeah.
seen that in their eyes and something happened. You know that something happened, right?
They were, and now they're just
There's
spent.
like a shell or like a guarding barrier so thick that you can no longer see the light behind their eyes.
And you said the mom's light, she was also a light being, but hers was much more dampened.
Yeah.
And that, you know, 12, 13 years of body manipulations, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the soul and the body have that connection, right? And it must dissever that connection to some degree, or what?
Yeah. I've heard the words to break somebody's spirit.
Yeah, there you go.
I've heard that word a lot. When I was little, I saw that happen. I saw people's spirits being broken. And when I looked, I couldn't understand it. Because if you look further, you can see the spirit still there. But there was something broken. And what I noticed was that the connection between themselves and their spirit was broken, or their source. You know, the connection between them and their source was broken. But not the source itself. That couldn't be broken. The spirit could not be broken.
But the connection.
The connection between themselves and their reality construct and everything else, and that source, or what one might call their spirit, that part was broken or damaged.
Okay. I can,
dampened.
Yeah.
Or
I can
closed.
imagine there are some who get incarnated into a place where it's, they're not like, I'm going to come shine the brightest light in the darkest place, but they're going to like, I'm going to see if you can break my spirit or my will. And it's like a
It's more
challenge.
like
You
a
ain't going to do it
game.
like a
Yeah,
game.
like,
So there's probably
there's
somewhere
some
in
of
that.
those. Oh yeah.
Not in this case.
Not in this
Not
case,
in this
no.
case.
But yeah, those are.
There are those.
There are those.
Like, yeah, try your best shot. Good luck.
Yeah.
So, in the case of like the mom
Mm-hmm.
and the case of the baby, so the baby was like a couple weeks and she'd already been body trained to not respond negatively, cry,
Mm-hmm.
to being tortured.
Mm-hmm.
And the mother, 12 years old, 15, 14, whatever age, probably as youngest you can and still end up having a baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hers was dimmed.
Yes.
And so does it take the same amount of get out of the torture time to recover from that, or is the recover from that much faster? In other words, if it took 10, 12 years of torture to get that girl's light dimmed,
Mm-hmm.
does it take 12 years of processing to get it like clear again, or is it possible to even get it clear again?
That's a very individual decision.
If she chose to, let's say.
Yeah, but it's a very individual decision of how and when and whether it will get over, uh, overcome it,
or
or get rid of the trauma. It's very individual to the person. So there's no rule, fast rules. Can you just click your fingers and it's gone? That's possible. Do you have to do 12 years of processing? If you had 12 years of abuse, that's also a choice.
maybe 24 years
Maybe 24
or an
years,
entire life. Who
or the
knows?
entire life, or never do it. Just
Or half the
process,
time, or a
or
quarter
just
of the
process for
time.
the rest of your life and never actually get over it. That's all. Those are all individual choices.
So at the very minimum, you can say that it doesn't. The answer is no. It isn't necessarily true that you need to take at least as long, or twice as long, or half
No.
as long. That's going to be an individual choice.
Right.
Well, how do they make? I mean, do you understand what I'm asking? Like there'll probably be people listening who've been through trauma in their life, and maybe it's 10 years of trauma, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 17 years. Do they have to? What is their route to becoming most effective at being the light they're here to be? Which is it? It's like
So the first thing that I would do the fear processing exercise,
yeah,
or the stress relief exercise. Start working with fear, because traumas are fear based, and you help your physical body with that as well. Obviously, make this choice first. Yes, this is something I can release, and then watch out for I'll never be able to do this.
firewalls, right?
Firewalls, right? Yeah, watch out for firewalls, and use the firewalls exercise on those.
Right. When you say the fear processing exercise, the firewalls exercise, if someone's listening to this, they don't have any idea what you're talking about. Where do you find that?
Fearprocessingexercise.com and stressreliefexercise.com.
Oh, okay. Well, that's easy enough.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And
Start with those.
I would start with those, but also, you have to make that decision. And there is an understanding that I managed to see when I was very young. And that understanding is that pain hurts, and we are in a situation like Dark Paradigm where our emotional bodies, physical bodies, mental bodies, emotional bodies specifically, can be hurt really deeply, and their growth can be stunted, or stumped. What's it called? Stunted?
Yeah.
And that is a place where you can start doing different things to bring that maturity about, to make your body mature. We're not given, or we don't give ourselves even enough time for each lifetime to even mature, even in the slightest, tiniest parts as a being. Our lifespan, we've shortened it to very, very little, and we get old very, very fast. So we don't really have that much time to mature. But we can accelerate it, we can do things about it. And doing these processes allows and gives us the space to start maturing those bodies. And then once we start maturing those bodies, we have the capacity to make the choice between pain, which I said, pain is painful, and suffering, which is the holding on of that pain at some level. Whether it's a mental holding on, a physical holding on, an emotional holding on, an egoic holding on, an energetic holding on, we hold on to that pain, and that's what trauma is. And that's what causes depression and all these other things. Those are symptoms of us holding on to that pain past the period of it having been useful. When is pain useful?
Hey,
If somebody yes, it's information, right? If somebody goes out of their way to hurt your feelings, what is that giving you? What information is that giving you? step away from that person, right? And if you're a baby, don't take it personally. It's like you stepped into where you thought would be where the light was most needed. And now you're getting more clever at it.
Mhm.
And even when you see a baby in that situation, you can actually connect with that baby and tell them, hey, dude or dudette, you can make this stop. And suddenly that baby's life will change if they hear you, right? If they're open to hear that. But if they're in a situation of, challenge or a game with other people, of back and forth, victim aggressor back and forth, it's sometimes hard to get through.
Well, they don't want to don't want it to get through.
But you can actually ask them nicely.
Yeah.
It's like, please,
Not in my
that.
reality or whatever.
Not in my reality.
Well,
so
yeah.
It's like pain and suffering are very different.
That's good.
One of the things you can stop doing as an adult is to stop blaming others. When you find yourself blaming another person, and if you can't even find the reason for this lifetime, so you say it must have been a previous lifetime that person screwed me over, then you are in the victim aggressor cycle. So you step out of it because that's not real. And so they blaming the government, blaming other people, blaming other situations, blaming your cell phone, blaming whatever you might want to blame for your circumstances, your choices, and your feelings. That means you're in the victim aggressor cycle, and you have to step out of it. That's another thing you have to do to step out of that thing, right? The dimness, and be more effective as a light worker. And
because you're not effective as a light worker when you're in a victim aggressor cycle.
No, you're not.
And that victim aggressor cycle is like I remember watching why are the roads bad? That's the government's fault.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And why are this? Oh, it's the council's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And why is this? Oh, it's so we can blame people, but we can also blame groups of people, because what is the council? Right. It's people. Right. Still blaming people, right?
Yeah. And then other people, what they do is they understand that, knowing that you can't blame others, to blame themselves. Oh my gosh, I do this to myself. I'm bringing this in. I'm attracting it. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it's blame, blame, blame. So the blame part, basically get rid of it. Get rid of your blame. Get rid of blame. Don't blame anybody. Like, take information in and then make a choice. Do I want to continue in this situation or not?
This leads me to a direction, as some of us who've woken up finding ourselves in this blame situations, then take responsibility and some ways go to the blame yourself. Well, you're the one who picked it, so who's to blame? It's you, right? One of the other ones are seeing people in these suffering situations and getting a basic idea of karma, right? And that was actually something I was reading to the other day, in a way for understanding what karma was. And so seeing a whole bunch of people in suffering and saying, well, that's a good thing because they're clearing their karma, right? Because they obviously clearly had past life negative. They were
You
bummed.
can imagine.
They were bad in a past life, right?
You can see who would have invented that teaching, right? I will torture you because
that will help you clean your karma.
Because I'm cleaning your bad karma, right? So that's BS, right?
Yes, it is. It makes the idea of others in suffering getting through their suffering so they can clear their karma, so then they don't have it in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So make it now, it's fine. Yeah. It's like you gotta go exhaust that or whatever. Man, I mean, you can see how moving someone, this karma teaching that way, moving someone from one place where they're actively engaged in saviour, saving the person from their suffering, into a different place where they're not so much actively engaged in saving a person from trauma, but somehow, unfortunately, it's like twisted into, well, that trauma and suffering is a good thing to clean up their past transgressions. which isn't actually a great corner to. That's not the right. Yeah, not that
No,
way.
don't go down that road.
Don't go down that road. But that's been taught to billions of people, right?
Mhm.
Along with another set of billion of people who
Well,
someone suffered
let
for
me
your
just.
good, right?
So
It's a
all
lot of
these teachings,
all of these helping suffering be a good thing somehow.
right? There's gazillions of teachings out there of all flavors, all colors, dark, light, all the things. But it's you who chooses what of those teachings you integrate into your life. You choose it. No one else chooses it. You choose it. It's like when people blame their mom, right?
Yeah.
It's my mom's fault. She taught me this and she did that and she did the other. Your mom taught you billions of things, but you're the one who chose which ones to integrate
Which ones to give her credit for
and to give her credit for, yes,
or blame for?
or blame, right? So it's a bit like that. So even in these religions and these dogmas that teach people how to be disempowered without telling them they're being disempowered, there's so many of them, but the person chooses which ones to integrate and which ones not to.
So the karma one, in a lot of ways, because that's what Hinduism, Buddhism, all of these other isms that have karma incorporate in them in some way. The karma is a step up out of victim aggressor, but it seems to like been ushered down a sideways path where it's better but worse.
Mm.
What is it? You know what I mean?
No.
I mean, before understanding karma, because I speak from my experience of if someone's suffering, then you gotta go fix them, right?
Right. Yeah.
And boy, I don't know if you've ever tried to fix someone.
Codependency, anyone?
Let me just say, there's a lifelong spiraling.
They're going to keep
Fix
you
them and need
occupied
fixed. Need more
for the
fixing.
entire life if you want to.
Yes,
Yes.
if you've ever tried to fix someone, there you go. And
Yes.
it's not the same as, helping someone. Hey,
It's not the
got
same.
a flat tire, I can help you out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got some air thing, fill it up. That's not fixing someone, but fixing someone who's engaged actively in their victim or their damaged light worker or their whatever's fixing them, boy. Good luck, right? Because they're the ones who are going to be doing the fixing, right? They're the ones who are fixing themselves. You're not really going to be able to fix anybody.
Mm.
But you'll find yourself spent years or decades or even the whole of your life engaged in that fixing process, which is essentially covering yourself up with mud too, distracting yourself
There's
most
a very
often.
big distraction, yes.
Huge distraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the teaching of karma, where that is them, they are responsible for their experience, is sort of what karma brings in a little bit. And so that sort of hitchhikes along, like, okay, so I don't have to fix them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to be standing aside watching a bunch of people suffering in a pile of poo,
But, right. Yes. So
So
what do you
that's
do
the
in that
problem with the
situation?
karma, is it brings you to that place where you're um, creating this
Mm-hmm.
pool of everyone that's in suffering. Yeah, like get your suffering going, get it done with, so you can clear that karma. Like, so that's like you stepped out of the ditch into the ditch. There's a ditch right next to the ditch, I guess. Out of
Oh
one
boy.
ditch into the other.
Oh boy.
Right. Anyway, change the channel a tiny bit. When later in the essay, your mom came to you and told you a story, and she said this whole long story to get you to go with her
Mm-hmm.
to sit with this girl, the baby who had now been
It's about, yeah.
adopted
Mm-hmm.
or placed in a home
Yes. Adopted.
temporarily to see if she could stay, that kind of a
Right.
thing. And the people that had the baby were having troubles with her because she was right? She still had the touch her and she wouldn't cry,
Yeah.
amplified times 100 or 1,000. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like no physical touch and no, very withdrawn and like not opening. So your mom was a healer and she went to try to help them,
Mm-hmm.
but she wasn't able to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she wanted to recruit you. So she didn't just ask you, hey, come along with me. I have a tough project or a tough case. Can you give me a hand? She told you this whole story, right?
Well,
This whole story loaded with the trauma and the who's the baby and all of these other things that put all of these points of connection in your head of
mm-hmm.
connecting you to that baby that you touched so many years ago, right?
Right.
All of the story that your mom told
Yeah.
made that connection. Do you think that was an orchestration, part of an orchestration? Did your mom always tell you the whole story in order to get you to go do something? Or were you more like open to just like, okay, your mom asked, so let's go? I mean, why did you need the whole story? Is it normal that you get the whole story?
Non. Well, kind of. Sometimes she would, sometimes she wouldn't. But it was more to do with the orchestration part. It's interesting because everything in our life, all of our experiences are orchestrated. There's like this gazillion years of orchestration for even this moment of you sitting down or driving or whatever it is that you're doing while listening to this podcast. Billions of years of orchestration for this moment to happen. So it's not a long stretch to think this little girl brought her baby over to the store where I was buying baby clothes, left the baby on a shelf. I saw the baby, right? And then it's like, it's like my reaction to the whole thing. And then a few years later, for my mom to be also involved in this story and her friends also involved in the story. It's not such a stretch. Especially, that's what I'm saying. I think this baby, it wasn't her first rodeo.
I mean, I kind of follow the energy line a little bit. It felt a little bit like she decided I'm going to dump in the darkest spot of the darkest spot, but I'm going to recruit an ally, you, to get me out of it.
Not just me.
When you pulled a parachute,
Yeah, not
you
just
and
me
others.
though.
You and
Right?
others, yeah.
Exactly. All these light workers. I
Going in with a
realize.
PFD.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Felt like she had
Yeah.
she knew what she was doing.
Right.
Like, oh,
Right.
I'm not going to be able to make it out of there without some
Yes.
help, guys.
Yeah.
Recruit a team.
And it wasn't just her that was out of it, it's like there was a lot of people. I mean, there was a large family that was going on with. A large, large family. And
Right.
it'd been going on for, I think it was hundreds of years.
Yeah, probably generational, right?
It was very much generational. So all that, all of it.
Yeah, there's more to the story.
More to the story.
That's how it felt when I started to read it. After, like, this is like I'm saying, the first time through it was like emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and then a second and the third, and then this time through after having let in it sit for a little while and
Mm-hmm.
going through the last few years of whatever, I
Yeah,
could see there's
yeah.
some more like ahs. It became more data and more able to be looked at as data sake.
Right.
You can connect these dots that may not be connected because even then, I mean, you weren't exactly well experienced in the ways of incarnation,
No.
having just been incarnated yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like you're not like professional at body to body communication or soul to
No.
body communication either. Maybe
No.
soul to soul, but not
No,
body to
I
body.
had to go to university to learn that stuff.
Yeah.
Communication in any form.
Well, yeah, I wanted to go into that a little bit, but first I wanted to sidestep one little bit, which was your mom's engagement as unburdening traumas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people who had a bunch of traumas, there was something about her unburdening the traumas onto you, or you unburdening them from that person, or anyway, something about unburdening these traumas. Like someone who's got a lot of trauma unburdens those traumas by sharing them with someone, a healer.
It's not, I don't think it's about sharing, so the healer doesn't have to like participate in that trauma.
Well, often, people who have been traumatized, right? I don't know about often, but people who've been traumatized go to some form of psychologist or help or their
Yeah.
therapy or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe people listening might be therapists
Yeah.
who deal with people's traumas, and they're unburdening the impact of them to some degree
Yeah.
by sharing them, like
It
me reading
depends.
this article 4 or 5 times.
It's very, I think
That's
the
traumatizing.
sharing and the therapies, there's so many out there,
Yeah.
but some of these therapies help in a way when people talk about the things and share them, and other therapies make them worse.
Right. It's like,
So I can't really generalize, yeah, unburdening helps you, because sometimes it doesn't. It makes the trauma stronger. So, it's not that clear cut of unburdening things.
in your mom's case, she was often approached by people who wanted to unburden their traumas.
Yes.
What effect does having that happen to you, essentially being loaded up with other people's traumas, right? Have you noticed an effect? Did you notice
Well,
an effect on her?
I don't know about her. She was fine. She was a healer, right? So she was able to handle it. She was an adult woman. When it happened when I was 12, I noticed that my emotional body and my energy body were getting injured and even my mental body, because I was too little and too young and not mature enough to hear these things, people being tortured, raped, you know, and really, really horrific things happening to them. I wasn't mature enough in those bodies to handle it. And when I looked at that timeline, I died at 14 because I couldn't, those damages, when all of your body starts getting damaged and it can't be repaired, eventually you get cancer and all sorts of things and you die, right? It becomes a physical damage.
Right. You're
So I
talking
was too
about
little.
you're talking about in that timeline where you helped your mom by being a healer starting at 14 or whatever.
I wasn't trying to help her. I didn't know it was happening even. She was just bringing people over because she heard that. I mean, she knew, but she also saw that this healing happened when people would sit with me. And they didn't have to say anything. They didn't have to talk or anything. It was just sitting there. But when they would talk, that was damaging me as a kid. And then I saw that and I put a stop to it. But when this story happened, it was like 4 years later when I was 18 and 19, 5 years later. My bodies were already mature or maturing, more mature than when I was 14
And that might be
or
why your
12 to
mom
12.
needed to tell you so much of the story to get you to respond or agree.
Probably, yeah, because I told her, don't do this, never bring me anybody who needs healing, blah, 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 blah. And if you're going to do it, you ask me first. And I will tell you yes or no, I will help you or I won't help you.
Okay, so
That
that
did
makes
happen,
sense.
right?
Again,
As an adult,
orchestrated.
then she would come to me with the cases and she would full disclosure and tell me what it was about and can I please help? Yeah,
Well,
she
that
would
makes
do
sense.
that.
That makes sense. So with your mom, all of these unburdened traumas on her didn't really affect her.
No.
Okay, how about others? I mean, if you are in the position, not you specifically, but if a person who's listening is in the position where people tend to unburden their traumas on them, or it's their profession, what can they do to minimize the effects on them?
Funnily enough, I'm going to be doing 2 online classes for healers.
Okay.
Maybe if you're listening to this already, you can go to my media channels and there will be also a newsletter announcing these things. One is online on a virtual world called Second Life, and another one will be here at the Shaman Shack at a presential level. So, and spaces are very limited because this is information that I can't really give out to 1,000, 2,000 people in a lecture hall. I mean, I could probably give the information, but the actual thing I want to do is a workshop where people and healers can actually do the things. So that's a different dynamic. To give a summary of what a person can do, they're getting affected. Well, there's 3 main things. One of them is take care of yourself, as in release the energies after you've done the session. There's a lot of energy release exercises you can do. Make sure that you don't bring your work home. so you release it before you go home, and have some sort of healing, like meditation or group therapy or something yourself, so that it doesn't catch on you.
So
You
get
know,
Klingons. Yeah, I'll make a spiritual
Klingons.
cleansing
Yeah.
ritual.
Yeah.
Probably if you're finding yourself in that situation, a spiritual and physical and mental and emotional cleansing ritual of
Yes.
some kind, right?
Yeah.
Something that ticks the boxes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So looked like there was something jumping in the water, but maybe not. So we've said it. You said it earlier. I kind of wanted to retouch upon it. That choosing the darkest place to have the most impact to incarnate into is true or false? Does incarnating into the darkest place have the most impact?
Okay. If you have been on Earth for many, many, many lifetimes, let's say 200 lifetimes, and you're very well educated about the light dark paradigm, the chances are that yes,
You could have the most impact.
you could have the most impact if you delve in and get yourself into the darkest place. It's possible. You have a chance.
Okay.
But if you're brand new, only had a few lives here, like zero chance that you're going to be most effective there. Zero. You will be more effective in a light environment because it's about carrying your light, keeping your light, making the whole collective more brighter.
Right, because I mean, you, for example, your mission for quite a while, if you want to call it mission, your job, so to speak, was to go into the mud and pick the light workers out of the mud and wash them off and then send them back into the game,
Give
right?
them a little bit of water, a bit of food, and you
Right.
go back. I didn't actually. I would always say, hey, you don't have to go back in there.
Okay.
Always. Do not go back in there. You don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You just keep yourself healthy and bright, and that's going to be enough. Don't jump in. I don't. All
Well,
of them jump back in by themselves and say, no, no, it's fine. I'm doing.
I'm
This
feeling
is
good.
much better. I'm feeling much better. Boom, back in the mud.
So to some degree, this baby was one of those
I
light
think
beings who needed
so.
pulled out of the mud and wiped off a little bit. And
She didn't go back in. No,
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 that's
no, no.
fine.
I mean, not in this lifetime, right? I didn't see her for as long. I mean, maybe now, but for the history that I saw her live, she did not jump back in. But maybe she did. I don't know.
Right, but basically, you washed the mud off of her. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of like performed that job on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's no set darkest place. If you are XYZ is fine. I mean, you
Yeah.
were
I
going
had
in the
to.
mud to
Can
get
I
people out
just?
of the mud. You
Yes.
weren't going
Let
into
me add
the
a little bit more here.
you weren't going
Can
into
I?
the
Can I
brightly
add a
little
little bit more?
clouds like
Can I add a little
sprinkle
bit
dust
more?
on them.
Can I add a little bit more?
Well, yeah, of course you can.
Okay.
But you gotta let me finish
Here's the
talking.
thing. Here's the thing.
What?
Here's the thing.
I'm not.
Here's the thing.
I'm just listening.
Okay. Are you listening?
I'm totally listening.
Okay. So the light worker
Yeah.
needs to be mature for you to be effective if you're not going to be jumping back in the mud or if you're dealing with other people's traumas. You have to have an emotional, mental, physical, and energetic, and egoic maturity. You need to have that maturity in order to be effective, right? And you need to be effective at cleansing yourself and taking care of yourself. And if you don't have those skills, step out of the game. Step out of that game. You're not going to be effective there.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Like I said, if you're all those things, and then you can go into the swamp and be shiny bright and dodge the arrows or whatever it is you do. And if you're not, so if you are affected by it, either become mature, grow mature,
Yeah.
or go float on the clouds and get fairy dust sprinkled on you. That's just as great. I mean,
So sometimes you will hear a tale of woe, right?
yeah.
And you will be affected because you're empathic. You need to be able to deal with that. You cannot hold on to it. You need to understand what's happening, and you need to be able to deal with that energy
deal with
it's
what
just-
you're
yes.
seeing, because like I've said before, so some dark being or light dark being going into an experience for the challenge of like, I want to go like, I'm gonna beat you this time,
Mhm.
that's their game. You clearly don't need to go jump in and dust them off of the mud or whatever. That's not they're here for. They're not here for that. You're not here to prolong that
Yeah.
victim aggressor game stuff. If they came for that victim aggressor game stuff, let them have their game. Go on, do your game.
That's not what I was talking about exactly, but yeah, that's also true.
I mean, that's one of the things. That's one of the things of going in to try to, um, like believe that everyone who's here in those situations is a light being who's trying to have the most impact, and some of them are just not very good at it. Well, there's also some of them who want that, and they're not necessarily just light beings. So there's so many flavors to this. They're not all one thing.
Right.
Yeah, you don't need to have the same response to all
each
of the
one. Yeah.
each one. That's what I'm trying to say. One of the things that I'm curious about is there some form of some way we as incarnated humans who are light workers can communicate to those who are volunteering some of this information that they might like benefit from. Like if you're from a light universe, you've never been in a light dark, here's like a best practice. If you want to incarnate, maybe go here. Don't go there. How we share this with the non-physicals who are the little blue lights floating around who want to come in here and be pretty lights. How do we tell them? How do we tell them don't do that?
There's experiential telepathy, and if you want to know about that, I had to have class on
You have a
that.
class on experiential telepathy.
So you can communicate and tell them the most effect you're going to have is to go to the lightest sections of the planet.
Okay.
Of this reality.
I think that would be a reasonable, good group thing to do, right? Maybe we can do that on Walk With Me Now or on Star Tribe, one of those groups of lights who are mature, right?
Yeah.
Are matured, or chosen to mature.
Yes.
We can have like a 5-minute, some exercise of some kind where we get the message out, like share the message.
Yeah.
I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice.
All right. That's on my list then. So let's see. Oh, yeah, it was an expansion on that, from the light being having only light experiences, you don't really know what the dark experience is, let alone how to respond when you're in an incarnated dark experience, which is even more like pinched off than the one where you made the choice to come in, right?
Right.
So you're trying to make light choices from a dark and damaged energy level in an incarnated, cut off and separated from your higher awareness. Like it's hopeless.
Right.
It's hopeless. It's almost like the one thing that you might be able to do in that situation is do the opposite of what you think you should do. Right? That's that could possibly work, but you'd probably figure out how to trick yourself in that way anyway.
You probably would.
So it's best just not go there. Okay. The soul can't comprehend or help the body. So we're gonna switch channels a little bit again. When you went to visit this little girl who was now grown up a little bit, and you'd agreed to go with your mom, you had what I would call, or what felt like a soul body level to soul body level communication interaction, where you explained the rules of engagement, I guess, to the soul. And from when I was reading it, it felt like that was the body to body communication you were having, right? Because that's how I interpret things that I'm reading. It was like you went there and you saw her and you explained this to her.
Yeah.
I thought that was a physical communication, a physical, like what you communicated body to body. When you said what actually happened as she came up and touched your leg and you pushed her away, right? My leg, you're like, what why could you what? Right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's not right. You can't do that. But at a body to body level, it was the ways bodies would communicate. It's like
They're not acceptable.
you're not acceptable. You're covered with
Yeah.
slime and you're disgusting and poopy. Don't stinky.
Yeah.
And at a body level, at a soul level, the soul communication of comprehension, right? Comprehending what's going on, understanding this dark place that you went to whatever. This is what you knew before. This is what you thought before. This is where you are. This is how you get out of it. This kind of thing, right? But the soul isn't as able to connect with the body when they get
When that connection's
slimed,
broken,
right? When that connection's broken. So what do you do anything particular to help that? Was that part of why the physical body to body communication was so, what a soul would think like, well, that was mean, but a body would think, bodies think different. You know,
They
we've been
do.
talking about it
Yeah,
for a
we
while. It's
have, yeah.
like, Brad he's clearly torturing this poor mouse.
Brad is our cat.
He's our cat. Yes. Clear that he finds great pleasure in tormenting the poor beasts.
Yes.
And bringing them in for someone else to torture them is his favorite TV show. So
Yes.
bringing it in for PB to torture, and it's like
our
he'd
little
love to
dog.
watch that.
Yes.
And then be a good referee. So if it's getting away and going to live, it's like, go catch him and bring him back and give it back to the dog.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So at a soul level, when I see that, my soul says,
that's wrong.
That's wrong. Pick up the mouse by his tail, take him out into the woods far, far, far away, put him in a nice, tidy little hole with some seeds and a little cup of water, and then there.
Yes.
Fixed.
Yes.
Brad doesn't. If he saw me thinking that, he would say like,
"What are you doing?
What is your problem?
I'm teaching this puppy how
do
to
you know
hunt.
what this?
She's gonna die. She doesn't learn how to hunt. What are
She's
you thinking?
gonna die. What if you guys go on a trip? What's a dog gonna eat? He can't feed himself. It's retarded. I gotta teach it. Not retarded. Yes. You know what I mean? She needs lessons. She's clearly
not very good at this.
Not good at this.
Practice.
Right. Well, bodies communicate differently than souls. And it might be that the souls and the body connections are varying levels of connected, right? This is a thought that I've been having. That some bodies and some souls, the souls are less able to influence or less influenceable. And maybe it's multiple incarnations with a body that brings the bodies to more soul conscious awareness levels, right? And less bodies. Because again, if I took a mouse and I squished it with my foot, it would
kill you.
It would be traumatizing.
It would traumatize
right?
you.
And if Brad saw me do that, he would say, Good job! You got him!
You got it, yeah.
Right? It's completely different experience of reality, right?
Yes.
And bodies and souls are having a completely different experience of reality. And I can see with my own eyes, many, many, many people have that level of body experience that if they squished a mouse, they'd be like, yeah, I killed it. Think of all the things that dumb mouse would have done, pooped or chewed my wire or whatever. It's like, not even food. It's like vermin, kill vermin. And I'm not saying I like having a shit ton of mice in my house.
No, you don't.
But I'm not going to step on them and squish them either.
Right.
But there's these levels of soul to body connection, I think, that influences that experience that you're having.
I think so. Yeah,
right?
I think so, yeah.
And so in the case of the light being who comes, the baby was like shining this pure light, and then years of abuse and torture, it's like a little bit dampened in the body and the physical. They're like disconnected. It's trauma disconnected. It's a trauma-based mind control is something that people say, and maybe that is part of putting bodies back into the body experience. I mean, it's not light.
When I started in 2010 to do this work, what I noticed is I would say about 90% of the light workers that I was coming across which was thousands of people, were rejecting their body, and they were having a big disconnect with their body.
Right.
And they were rejecting incarnation altogether. And what I started saying, fully incarnate into your body. Come back fully into your body. And I got a huge amount of resistance to those words. To incarnate, fully incarnate into your body right now. And there was a resistance. And that resistance is the disconnect. Because I saw the physical experience that we have in the light dark paradigm is not pleasant for a light worker. It's not home. Because there's that dark side, the evil side. So most people that are light workers react by disconnecting, putting distance between themselves and their physical experience, their physical body.
Right, totally. That's I can hear that.
And that makes them less efficient, and that's why that is done on purpose to create that divide. Because it makes the light worker less efficient. You came here, you chose to incarnate, to bring your light here. But if you disconnect with your physicality, you're not bringing your light here. You just like a little trickle, the little line that you have with your body.
Basically, you're the abused little baby who's got stuff over the top of letting the pure, clear light that should have been there come out, right? Yeah. You could almost say you are become the product of all of that trauma-based mind control, which brought you to be ineffective. So if you want to be effective,
drop that bullshit.
Right?
Yes.
You don't be that. Don't be that. Yeah. Jump up, get yourself, shake off that mud.
Yeah.
Get into your body properly.
Yeah.
And
some of the signs, the red flags, to see if you're doing that is validating your suffering. Oh, if it wasn't for that trauma, I wouldn't be able to help people now. Oh, if I wasn't for that trauma, I wouldn't be such a good person right now. If you're validating it, okay? Right. Don't do that.
Okay.
Another sign is that you're fully jumping into the light to save others, and you're codependent, left, right, and center.
Okay, don't do that.
Don't do that. So there's certain signs that means that you're less effective, or that you're carrying that validating the light dark and stuff like that. So if you drop that, that's a great step forward into shining properly, into really bringing in your light and being 100% effective here on Earth.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think all of us can learn or see where we might be like compromising our light and our connection to our body, things like neglecting our body.
Yeah.
Right. And
calling it a meat suit.
Yeah. And validating the experiences we have that are negative or validating someone else's negative experiences.
Yeah.
As well, that'll teach their lesson. They needed that shit sandwich to get out of where they are at. Right. So these are like our own validations of
and
this
feeding the dark.
Light darks that we're actually here not to like indulge in.
Yeah, you're feeding the dark.
So it's not always easy or clear to see, but it is possible to see if you have other eyes looking with you who are like
join us. There you go. Join our podcast. Listen to it every week. That's a good step.
That's a great step.
That's a great step. Just the first hour for driving to the rest is great.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's great. You can read it. You can listen to it.
And if you want to go deep dive, $8 a month, you get deep dive, man.
Join the second hour. We go to
with the panelists and really get into the meat and potatoes of everything.
Yeah, from a perspective that you maybe relate to more. Maybe you're not a tribal fisherman like I was, Maybe you're not an author. Yeah. Maybe you're a professional or you have a corporate job. We have panelists who are corporate professionals.
Maybe you're an entrepreneur.
Maybe you're an engineer. We have panelists who's an engineer,
Maybe you work at McDonald's.
I did.
Yeah,
yes. I can totally relate. Yeah. I really actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. There you go.
It was not, well, I did totally enjoy it. Well, I was a rock star.
You're a rock star.
Because we had the first McDonald's in Alaska.
Yeah.
So for thousands of miles, it's like, oh, you work at McDonald's? It wasn't bad.
Yeah, street cred, man.
Cred, man. Oh yeah, I do breakfast and lunch. I can cook and counter, and I can also do drive-through. Wow.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
I think we touched on everything that I wanted to touch on.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's really good, enjoyable conversation.
Okay, honey. Love you.
Love you too.